Hello everybody, Calamity here, and today's video is going to be about the Chronicled Wish banner. Now I'm actually going to talk about all of the characters and weapons very briefly. I'm going to try to keep this video as short as I can to let new players know what they're getting themselves into. But before we do all of that, there are some very important details you guys need to know about the Chronicled Wish banner before you even pull. So first thing, just in case you're new, or you forgot, or just, you never pulled on the Chronicled Wish banner before, the pity for Chronicled Wish banners stays on Chronicled Wish banners. So don't go pulling into this banner thinking, oh, I'm just gonna pull till I get a guarantee, and if I don't win the 50-50, then fine, then I'll go to like Arlecchino or Chlorine or whatever, and I'll use my guarantee there. Does not work like that. Chronicled Wish is only for Chronicled Wish. So when you're pulling on this banner, make sure you have enough gems to get the character or the weapon that you want, because your pity will not carry over. And Hoyoverse has not done Chronicled Wishes very frequently. This is only the second time since they introduced this Chronicled Wish idea or mechanic or whatever into the game. So it's very, very rare to see a Chronicled Wish. I do hope they do them more in the future so that, your pity carrying over actually means more, and it's not a complete waste to just pull on this banner. So just keep that in mind. Get what you need, whether it be a character or a weapon, and then pull out. Do not build pity, as so to speak, as what a lot of players do on this banner. Go somewhere else to do that. The other thing that I should point out to everyone is that your pity will be saved on this banner, but your fate points will not. So if you have a fate point, make sure you get whatever, character weapon you picked. But if you're someone that tried to pull on this banner already and now you're like seeing this video, or you just realized, hey, I don't have enough gems to get what I want, but you haven't gotten a fate point yet, you can stop your pulls right now and you'll actually have the same amount of pity whenever they bring back the Chronicled Wish. But fate points do not get saved, pity does. So just keep that in mind. Again, okay, let's move on to the next part. So now that you understand how the pity on this banner works, you're going to see a menu like this when you come to the Chronicled Wish banner, and then you can choose either a character or a weapon. But before you do, let's just say, let's say I want to get Shenhe, right? If you go to the details page here, or the Chronicled Path rules, it will tell you that the 5-star items you receive from the Wish will only be the same type as the target you selected from your Chronicled Path. So if you pick a character, you will only get 5-star characters. If you pick a weapon, you will only pick 5-star weapons. This is to prevent you from getting crazy pulls like, hey, I got, I don't know, Zhao, Shenhe, and a Primordial Jade Spear in 110 pull. Like, you'll never see stuff like that. It's either one or the other, so make sure you understand. If you want a character, you're only going to get characters. If you only want weapons, then you're only going to get weapons, not both. Just like how limited banners work. So make sure you understand that. And with that being said, let's just say, again, you pick a character. Then you're going to see the menu change like this. It's going to say fate point 0 out of 1. So you just pull on the banner like you normally would until you get your 50-50. If you win it, great. You got your character. Dip out of the Chronicled Wish, please. And if you didn't, then you'll get 1 fate point, and then the next time you get a 5-star pull, it will be the character or the weapon that you chose for your Chronicled Path. So again, just keep that in mind before you even start to think about pulling for this character. Just again, I know I'm reiterating myself a lot here, but it's very important people understand this, just to make sure you have enough gems to get what you need. Otherwise, it's just going to be wasting your wishes. Now, with that being said, let's go back and actually briefly talk about each character and weapon on this banner. I will also advise, for those that are curious about, their gameplay and how they perform in endgame content, please, please, please do yourself a favor. Just look up some other content creators, YouTube video of them using the character. Especially on a free-to-play build, don't look up like C6 Refinement 5 whaled characters so you can actually have a realistic version of the character that you're going to pull for. So you can see how they play, how you build them, how they perform. I do have guides on my own channel for some of these characters, but not all of them, so just keep that in mind. I highly recommend doing your research if you're not sure. That being said, of course, it's your gems. Pick the character that you think looks cool, that, has a great personality or fits your playstyle, etc., etc. you know, have fun with it. Don't feel like you always have to pull for quote-unquote meta, because in fact, a lot of the characters on this banner aren't really that meta to begin with. They're all good though, don't get me wrong, but they're not like, you know, Malvika, Solali, Melt team damage. But anyways, let's go ahead and just start. Sorry, one more thing before I even start is that I'm not a fan that they put Keqing and Chi-Chi on the banner, because they're standard characters, right? We already can pull for them at any point. And like, yeah, obviously this is for people that really want Chi-Chi or Keqing, but I would have preferred they put more limited characters on this banner, like Zhongli or Cloud Retainer, who we haven't even seen in like a year at this point. So, but let's go ahead and start actually talking about the characters. The first one is Baizhu. He is a Dendro healer and a shielder at the same time. This character is basically Kirara and Yao Yao in one. And he also does some decent Dendro application. It's nothing crazy. It's not Nahida. It's not Dendro Traveler or even Kali. But he does do some to help set up your, you know, your Hyper Blooms, your Aggravates, your Burgeons, etc., etc. Definitely good for a Nilo team, since the most damage is coming from your own Bloom explosions, and he can heal that right up and prevent you from taking it with his shields. Solid character overall if you plan to do Dendro-related teams. Next up is Shenhe, and she's probably going to be the most picked and most popular character on this banner, simply because she's rare. Like, it's been over a year since her last rerun banner. And so you have a lot of people that have FOMO and are character collectors that don't want to miss her again. So now is the time to pull for her. And if you're wondering, you know, is she actually really good? Is she worth pulling? Not really, to be honest. She's very niche. She specifically buffs cryo damage attacks, and that's about it. So her options are very limited. And even when you do have her buff, unless you plan on getting her at C6, the buff expires really, really fast because of the way they designed it. So her buff will only increase the damage of a certain amount of attacks. I think it's only like 6 or 8 or something like that. It's really small. And Ganyu, like a character like Ganyu, can eat up those enhanced attack buffs really, really fast because of her charge attack hitting, you know, it hits multiple enemies and it can hit twice, right? So her buff can essentially get eaten up with one Ganyu charge attack, and that is definitely not worth a team slot on a Ganyu team, like a party setup for Ganyu. It's just too short. So it's not really that good. She is better with characters like Ayaka, Chongyun, like very burst heavy, like hard hitting characters, but not a lot of attacks. So Chongyun's burst being a good example of this. So yeah, very, very niche. Not very strong, but she does do, like, for what she does, she's really good at it. She also debuffs cryo resistance and I believe physical resistance as well with her burst. So good damage amplification for cryo units and also good debuffs on enemies. Next up is Keqing. She's on the standard banner, so I'm going to keep this really, really brief. She is just a main DPS. Electro DPS, she has many more options than she did in the past, just because of more and more characters. So you can do her with a overcharge team with Chevrus. You can put her in a overloaded and then electro charge team with Auroron. You can also still do the aggravate stuff if you have Dendro, Nahida, for example. Really, really good team comp there. Lots of options for Keqing. So, you know, feel free to experiment and play with what you got. Next up is Ganyu. She is what was considered one of the best DPSs for her time when she was first released. She's still pretty strong, but unfortunately, she is one of the few characters I would say got heavily power crept during this game's lifespan, and that's mostly just because of cryo being very limited with its interactions with other elements. So, like, for example, when Dendro came out, cryo has nothing to do with Dendro, and they don't really synergize. There's no reaction between them, so they don't really pair up that much unless you're doing some weird melt burning stuff, but that's a whole nother story. She's still pretty solid as a DPS. She has really good AoE clear, so if you're having trouble taking out groups of enemies, she's really good for it. And as Samurai has pointed out in many of my previous videos, she's actually really good for fungi farming in Sumeru, because again, if you use like Pyro, Hydro, Electro, it messes up the drops. Whereas Cryo, because it doesn't interact with Dendro, does not. And so she's really good for AoE farming there. And yeah, she doesn't really work that well with Shenhe, as I mentioned before, because she'll eat up Shenhe's buff in a matter of seconds. In fact, it could just be one charge attack that eats it all up. So yeah, very solid character. She's gotten a little bit of upgrades via other characters' 5-star weapons, but you know, she's still, I would say she's probably like a solid B or A tier for DPS. If you do invest into her heavily, though, she does become really, really strong. Next up is probably the worst character on this banner. Sorry, Chi-Chi mains, I hate to do this to you, but it's just how it is. She is on the standard character as well, so chances of you having her, you know, the meme, haha, Chi-Chi stole my 50-50. Now she can steal it on the Chronicled Wish as well. But the problem with Chi-Chi is that she just got power crept by other healers and supports just doing more. Chi-Chi heals, and she applies Cryo, which is good. But in terms of buffs, debuffs to enemies, stuff like that, not that much. She doesn't really provide anything significant to the team, other than some decent healing. For example, Bennett 4-star provides tons of attack from his burst, right? Diona, who's a 4-star, provides a shield and heals and buffs to her team. So, you know, even 4-stars are being more a bit more useful than Chi-Chi. You know, unfortunately, you know, I hate to talk down on this little zombie child, but it's just how it is. You know, I know there's probably some gimmicky, silly physical DPS stuff you can do with Chi-Chi, but even physical DPS isn't in a good spot these days, so it's really hard to recommend pulling for her or any reason to, other than you think the character's adorable and you want her. Other than that, she is an easy skip. Next up is Tartaglia. Even though he's not from Leeway, we did technically meet him there, so I guess that's why he's here. He is a solid Hydro DPS, obviously just like Ganyu and other characters. He has definitely been power crept by the release of tons of different Hydro DPS characters we have these days, like New Valette, for example, or Mualani. Just totally out DPSing him in every way possible because they just do so much damage. With that being said, if you don't like either of the two aforementioned characters, then Tartaglia is a solid character still. His weapon also really strong, the Polar Star. If you can happen to get both of them, he'll be a really solid DPS. He's best friends with John Ling and Bennett because of their constant pyro application that he can vaporize off of. You can also pair him with the new 4-star character from Leeway. You can also pair him with Kazuha. Like he has a lot of team variety. Speaking of new stuff for him specifically, Zhao is actually a character that also would be in the same area as Tartaglia, but honestly he's been kept alive and not totally power crept, just because they keep giving him more and more stuff throughout the years. So like, for example, he has his own artifact set that gives him a ton of bonus damage. And last year they gave him Cloud Retainer, which is one of his best teammates because she increases damage of she increases plunging damage really well, and I believe she can provide good energy for Zhao because, you know, 2 Animos on the field on your team. So he's still a really solid pickup. He does primarily do AoE damage though, so just like Ganyu, he's good for taking out crowds of enemies. His single target can be okay, but he's definitely gonna need some help, either by constellations or some really big buffs from his teammates. So just keep that in mind. More for AoE clear, less for bosses. Next up is the weapons. We're gonna start off with the Primordial Jade Cutter. This is honestly one of the best swords in the game still, because it gives you a lot of crit rate and it turns your HP into an offensive stat by making it increase your attack. Obviously, if you get more refinements on this, then, you know, even better. It's a very strong stat stick for a lot of characters. Obviously, it's here because Kaching in the banner goes really well with her. I mean, technically, you could also give it to Chi-Chi if you want, but honestly, Kaching is going to be the best character. But it could also be used for any other 5-star DPS or 4-star DPS sword-wielding character. It's really strong. I'm going to go ahead and just do the Summit Shaper and the Unforged together. And honestly, both of these weapons are bad. If you get them, you know, oof. If you're barely starting out, they can be okay as a stat stick, but there's not a lot of characters that this is like, oh my god, this is the best weapon for them. Nothing else is going to beat it. Like, nah, these are both pretty bad. Let's move on to the Calamity Queller. Hey, I'm in the game. This is only good for Shenhe. I guess it could be kind of good on some other characters, but honestly, only pull for this just for Shenhe. This is literally just the Shenhe weapon. Primordial Jade Wing Spear is kind of in the same realm as the Primordial Jade Cutter. This is just a good overall weapon. It doesn't have to be just Zhao's weapon. Again, there are plenty of DPS options in the game that can use this. Gives a bunch of crit rate as well, so it increases attack by a bunch. Decent weapon there. This is Baiju's weapon, the Jadefall Splendor. This is only going to be okay for supports because it gives a bunch of HP. You can see right here, HP percentage on the subset. So you can give this to characters like Barbara, for example. Can also be a decent weapon for Kokomi since those two characters are very similar. It gives them a bunch of HP, as I mentioned before. Energy recharge. The elemental damage bonus that they gain is not important, to be honest. And yeah, it's pretty solid weapon for supports. Memory of Dust is a standard weapon. I'm sure most of you know what it does by now. It's just a lot of attack. If you have a shield, you get even more attack. So the Memory of Dust gives you a bunch of attack percentage, and if you have a shield, the buff you get from this weapon's effect is increased by 100%, so it incentivizes bringing a shielder for more attack buffs. So just lots and lots of attack. The only downside to the Memory of Dust is that you're not getting any crit rate or crit damage to help build your characters out, so you have to get that all from your artifacts. Next up is the Polar Star. This is still one of the best bows in the game, not just for Tartaglia, but for any DPS-oriented bow character. It's going to be really, really strong. Again, lots of crit rate, increases the damage of Elemental Skill and Burst, and just more, honestly, just more attack, more damage. It's just a very solid weapon. And a not so solid weapon is the Amos bow. This is Ganyu's signature weapon, so to speak. It is only good for Ganyu, and I guess I can't really think of any other character it's that amazing for. It's very Ganyu only because it increases the damage based on the travel distance of your arrows, and because Ganyu shoots two charged arrows, one initial one and then the second, they both get affected by this weapon's effect. So that's gonna do it for this video on the Chronicled Wish banner. Just wanted to quickly go over how it works so a lot of new players understand you know, the pity system and stuff like that, and quickly just go over the characters and the weapons on the banner just in case you're, again, brand new and you're just very unfamiliar with a lot of these characters and the weapons. If you are still wanting to see more, check out more gameplay on YouTube or Twitch or wherever else you watch your Genshin stuff to get a really good understanding of how the character works. And try to look up free-to-play builds, again. Because I know a lot of people will say, like, oh, Ganyu's still good, and then they'll have, like, constellations on her and some tricked-out 5-star weapon with refinements on it and stuff like that. And it's just like, yeah, that's not going to be something that's available for everyone to get. That being said, if you have any other questions on the Chronicled Wish banner, or you know, you have some other info that I might have missed, feel free to leave a comment down below. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and or subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna make more content soon. In fact, I'm gonna make another video talking about the free 4 stars that you can choose from tomorrow. So look forward to that, and I'll see you guys next time.